It's just another heavy, drama-filled week for UFC fans. Word is that one of the best fighters in the MMA is taking his leave, and people are going feral trying to offer him better opportunities. But why is Francis leaving in the first place? Everyone is shook. He's made quite a name for himself in the world of MMA. What reason would he have to leave now? Well, it seems like he's had a conflict of interest with the president of the UFC, Dana White. Before fans went absolutely crazy with their theories, Ngannou decided to come out with an explanation video for himself. The man had big plans ahead of him. Apparently, the former UFC heavyweight champion wanted to sign a new 3-fight contract moving forward. He'd planned on fighting Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. He then planned to complete the trilogy with a rematch with Jones before making his return to boxing. He had it all figured out. Getting back to professional boxing after a year, he was already in the middle of discussions for high-end fights with Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua.
I'm the boxing heavyweight champion, UFC heavyweight champion. He's in great shape. Look at the muscles on him.
And we're going to find out who is the baddest mother on the planet.
It seems like he had his path laid out in front of him. So how did all of this end up with him waving goodbye? It may all seem perfect, but ultimately there was this one thing that killed the deal. Ngannou didn't want a typical contract. The 36-year-old had had enough of the standard contracts, which basically handed over all the power to the UFC. This time he wanted to do things his way. In his explanation video, he revealed that the strict contracts were too controlling for him. He felt suffocated and that he was losing his freedom. He said that the rigidity of the promotion's rules were too much for him. According to Ngannou, he put forward some terms for the Las Vegas-based promotion, but none of his terms were met, like the right of a sponsorship, health insurance, or a fighter advocate. He couldn't have anything he asked for. The promotion wasn't even letting him pursue and navigate his career the way he wanted to. He wasn't free, and the UFC had complete control over him. Seeing the way they abused this power, he didn't want to be on the receiving end of it anymore.
It just gives out. Ooh, right there. Just gave out, just slipped, gave out, and then started eating some huge.
Talk about being toxic. Ngannou also mentioned that his last interaction with the UFC was when the promotion told him they had to move on with the heavyweight division. But even though he had no expectations that all of his terms would be met, he wasn't ready to move forward or compromise on them. If he did that, he would be left without any leverage in future negotiations.
On the feet, and that's the truth.
Ngannou with some serious power.
He was clearly fed up with the UFC's refusal to cooperate with him, because according to Dana, he even turned down an offer that would have made him the highest-earning heavyweight fighter in UFC history. That's huge! But then again, Dana isn't really the best source here, especially since the president hasn't really had the best things to say about him. Dana took up this opportunity to shift the blame onto the UFC legend. As for making him the highest-paid heavyweight, Ngannou said he wasn't sure because it hadn't been confirmed. It's all their narrative, which is their narrative, and it can't be proven. White also tried to disrespect him, saying he was getting old and he was trying to avoid taking risks, but he clearly chose the wrong side this time. The president was ridiculed for even suggesting that, and that the former champion was afraid of fighting due to his bad knee. Ngannou addressed Dana's claims on YouTube, saying the whole notion of him avoiding a fight with Jon Jones was hilarious, especially since he was the one so determined to make it happen in the first place. He said that he's been waiting for this fight to take place for over 2 years and has been fighting guys with one knee in the meantime. Now that he's in a better condition, he'd be more afraid to fight? Make it make sense. Not gonna lie, Dana's comments seem pretty baseless. Besides, he seems pretty bitter about the whole situation. He had his champion turn down a huge offer and walk away. That probably doesn't happen very often to the big boss. You know what really rubs salt in the wound? The fact that it hasn't been long since Ngannou left and there's already a long line of promoters ready to take him under their wing. That's no surprise though, since he's the most powerful puncher in UFC history.
He's getting chased down. Getting hammered, Des. This could have been all over him. And it's all over.
But I'm wondering, what does the former champion have lined up for him? Ngannou isn't this sought after for nothing. He has an MMA record of 17 wins. Dana even commented that getting hit by Ngannou's punch was like being slammed by a Ford Escort. Who'd like to be on the receiving end of that? So he's obviously left a long line of pursuits trailing behind him. One of them is Bellator MMA, who will be sprinting to get Francis's attention. Showtime Sports President Steven Espinosa confirmed that Bellator was definitely interested in bringing him into the roster. They have a pretty great advantage, too. The premium U.S. network has a wide-set sports portfolio to attract his attention. They also air young and emerging boxing talents via their Showbox property, have elite boxers, and also broadcast Bellator's MMA events. The president has even agreed to his terms, already stating that his platform can offer great flexibility in his routine, something he was having a hard time negotiating. I mean, who'd miss the UFC with that offer? He'd have the chance to sign a multi-fight, multi-year deal to compete in MMA fights, all while dipping in and out of boxing whenever he wants against Showtime's heavyweights. Espinosa even said that Bellator was the best fit for Ngannou, giving him the greatest opportunities in both boxing and MMA.
Real speed, watch what happens here. Boom, boom. That's how fast it happens.
While Bellator is trying to snatch up Ngannou, other fighters are trying to get him to step into the ring with them as they line up for a shot at the Predator. Ngannou has had his hands full of potential opponents, especially as Tyson Fury, Dillian Whyte, and more approach him for a boxing match. The English boxing heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury, has expressed his interest in the UFC champion. He called him out for a chance to earn some big boy money.
Absolutely destructive one-punch power. Just finished it.
He's not the only one making promises, though. 35-year-old boxer Dillian Whyte is also in line, but he seems to be getting a bit ahead of himself. Whyte stated even though Ngannou was the champion and a dangerous opponent, he thinks he would bash him up. But Ngannou doesn't have such a dangerous reputation for nothing.
Champion of the world, Francis the Predator.
There's also Kalle Sauerland, promoter of Wasserman Boxing, who's ready to sign Ngannou for a crossover fight with Chisora. Aware of the fact that several people are hounding him at the moment, Sauerland thinks that he can offer Francis something unique and different. Even though Ngannou's release from the UFC has opened up a bunch of opportunities for him, he's left behind a lot of mixed opinions in his wake. He especially made Joe Rogan mad. He clearly holds Ngannou to high standards. Ngannou was undoubtedly a big deal in the UFC since his absence has left a gaping hole in the title of the champion. The UFC commentator Joe Rogan thinks his exit will lead to fans being deprived of some of the best top heavyweight fights. Whoa! His release continues to send shockwaves around the sports community. Even though he has a very good impression of Ngannou, he thinks a potential Ngannou versus Tyson Fury match wouldn't end well for him. He explained that Ngannou was a threat to be dealt with and could knock out any human being on earth if he hit them in the chin. But hitting Tyson Fury clean on the chin, that's a whole other ordeal. Well, that's all from my side about Francis Ngannou. We'll see you in the next video.